Hello and welcome to Systems Wise, the show that helps business owners and teams to solve their big sales, marketing and systems challenges one episode at a time. You can watch the video version of this episode at getsystemswise.com. I'm Gareth Everson. Thanks for listening to the Systems Wise podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to be wrapping up our systems management series. Remember, we're talking about the 5 Ps of systems management. And today's episode is focused on your products. Remember in episode 33, I gave you an overview to the 5 Ps. Episode 34, we talked about the first of those 5 Ps, which was people. Episode 35, we talked about processes. 36, we talked about platforms. And then on the last episode, episode 37, we talked about passwords and the security of both your business and services that you use online in your business. So let's get into today's episode where we'll talk about your product offering and everything that goes with that. So thinking about your business and protecting the products that are in there, whether they're physical products that you sell that you don't want to be cloned or copied, or they're service-based products that you provide for your clients, we've got a number of different things that we can look at there. There's the legal, for example, IP protection and registering trademarks and that kind of thing. There's also making what you do unique to you, your methodology. There is the topic of having control and having protection for and having backup systems in place for all of your various assets that go into you delivering that service. And then finally, there is protection for your brand and how you manage that and how you make sure that your brand is representative of you wherever you appear on the web. So let's start with the first one of those and around protecting your IP. If you have something that's unique about what you do and it's copyable or clonable or worth something to somebody else that they would copy your service and run with it themselves, it's very much worthwhile you protecting those brand assets that you have, that offering that you have, with some form of intellectual property protection, be that registering trademarks around what you do, registering ownership of specific things that you do that are part of your delivery. If you want to avoid that happening, it's very much worthwhile you consulting legal advice to get those assets protected. A really good way of thinking about this and starting down this pathway is to consider what makes your product or your services absolutely unique to you. So to make them non-clonable, to make them non-generic, to make them associated with you as a business and as a person. People talk about defining a methodology for how you do things. That is very protectable from a legal perspective. So if you followed the podcast for a while now or followed me for a while, you'll know that my systems methodology is called Lemonade Plan. Lemonade is not a unique concept in the world. We've all drunk lemonade in the past. But thinking about it from a perspective of systems and processes, I want that concept to be completely associated with me and my business. And so for me, it's important that I'm able to protect that and protect that methodology and make a statement to say Lemonade is associated with Gareth Everson and with Systems Wise, such that somebody can't look at that and go, actually, I'm just going to use that exact same term. So that's what I mean by protecting your IP and protecting the method by which you deliver services to your clients. So if you don't already have a methodology, a defined methodology that you deliver for your clients, give some thought to that. Is it worthwhile considering what that might look like by way of a methodology that is just you and can only be yours and the way that you deliver things for your clients? So then let's think about what we mean by the assets that go into your business and your services. And this breaks down into a number of different areas. Unlike a physical business where you might have stock and property and those kind of assets, a service business is very much built on your knowledge, your insights, but also the materials, the digital materials and the physical materials that you create to be able to deliver your service. And when we put everything, as we do these days, into the cloud, sometimes we can forget to have backup systems in place of where we store these things. It goes from simple things like a backup of your website and the content that's on there, having that physically stored locally on your computer and backed up to services like Google Drive or Dropbox or places like that, such that if your website did go down or your hosting provider became non-existent for whatever reason, you have a way to be able to relaunch that website relatively quickly and an up-to-date version of that website at that. Then we've got things that go around the creation of our marketing identity, if you like. So things like our images that we use or infographics that we've created. Are they sitting just in one place, for example, in a Canva account or a graphic design, freelancers, Photoshop, or Adobe Suite? Have you got access to those images that you use and infographics or lead magnets that you've created for your business? Because not having those source files and not having access to those that you can readily go into and make amends to or take different versions of means that if you don't have those, you're going back to square one every time you need to create them again. So if you've had photography done with a professional photographer, make sure that you've got the source files for those. If you've had brand logos created or graphics created for you by graphic designers, make sure that you've got access to those source files so that you can use and reuse them elsewhere. Another classic, especially for solo business owners or small businesses, especially in this economy that we live in, this gig economy where we're hiring people on Fiverr or Upwork or Freelancer and paying somebody to develop and deliver something for us, is that quite often some of these services that we buy in as mini gigs, we only get the output files. So it's definitely worthwhile you paying a little bit more, perhaps, to those freelancers or those people on Fiverr to be able to get access to the original source files. Don't get caught by only buying the final output that comes out, because if you need to change it or something changes down the line or there's a mistake somewhere, you then have to go back and hope that that freelancer has still got those files and is happy to work with you to make those changes. It puts everything that you've put into that original investment in jeopardy. I mentioned lead magnets. Wherever you create your giveaway lead magnets and ebooks or freebie downloads, be it on Canva or in Google Drive or wherever you create those materials, make sure that you've got access to them and backups of all of those so that you can create them again easily. I've got clients who have VAs who don't use their own online tools, don't use the business's own online tools. And that leaves you exposed to not having the ability to be able to go and make amends or make updates or make tweaks to those resources that you would give away to leads and clients. And it becomes time consuming and difficult and expensive to recreate them if we don't continue to work with that VA going forwards. If you're working with freelancers or VAs and they are running services for you via access to their own software, their own Canva or Adobe Suite or whatever that might be, have you got processes and systems in place to make sure that those VAs or freelancers are always using your own business's brand settings? That'll be logos, it'd be colors, it'd be the font choices that you want them to use, the weightings and sizes and all of those kind of things. Because if you don't have that in place, what comes out of the back end, be it images or social media graphics or infographics or whatever it is that they're doing for you, that can look out of whack with the rest of your brand. So ideally, you'd have those freelancers or VAs accessing your Adobe Suite or Canva or whatever it is you're producing these materials on, have them wherever possible access your own services for those rather than using their own. The time that you waste correcting things and the discrepancies that you create of having assets online that don't quite look like your brand is really costly for any small business. Think also about if you've contributed to publications, perhaps a chapter in a book or written your own book, have you got access to all of the materials and imagery and text and formatting and source files for all of those publications and books that you've created or contributed to? Just do a check to make sure that you have all of those and you can access them easily. Then let's think about what you're doing by way of your communications activity with your clients. That largely relates to email marketing, but it might also relate to text messages that you send in a templated format or direct mail assets that you have and you've created to be able to communicate with your leads and clients. More often than not these days, all of those assets are stored in the cloud and online. Have you got backups of all of those such that if you do change software or service provider, you've got access to them easily and you know how to find them so that you can recreate those in a different piece of software relatively easily? And then finally, this sounds like a really obvious one, but is overlooked frequently. When you come to be making sales, if you've got online order pages or you've got a Shopify store or you're taking payments via Stripe, have you got backups of all of those vehicles to be able to make those sales? There's nothing more important in your business than getting paid. And if you lose access to, say, your Stripe account or your Shopify store or your online order pages, how would you go about replacing those quickly? So if you are using an online vehicle to be able to take payments, it might be a WooCommerce store that somebody's developed for you, have you got a means to be able to A, know what they are, B, know what you were charging for those services, and C, a way to be able to recreate those on a different service or platform to be able to enable you to take payments effectively? So, as we wrap up this series on systems management and we think about some of the core themes that have come from the 5Ps, I want you to think about this. Whilst the cloud has made it so easy to do things and run things in our business and to collaborate with people wherever they are in the world, it's also introduced an element of confusion and definitely laziness around protecting how we run those systems and how we keep our systems management running for us. If you've learned nothing else from going through these 5Ps, then take away this. We need to be diligent as small business owners to protect the ongoing life of our business. And if we don't have that, we don't have a business very, very quickly. So as you process what you've learned from this 5P series, just take some time to document steps that you need to take around keeping your people, your processes, your platforms, your passwords, and your products as secure as they can be in your business. No business is perfect on any of these things, but if you can plug some of the gaps that exist today in your business and close off some of those risks that you might face if you don't do so, then you'll be in a better position. I hope you valued this series on systems management. If you've got any feedback or any questions whatsoever, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you use the short URL askgareth.com, that takes you directly to my LinkedIn profile, and let's have a conversation there. Thanks for listening. And if you value the podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you left a review wherever you're listening to this episode. And if there's anything that you'd like me to cover in future episodes, don't hesitate to get in touch. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Systems Wise podcast. Remember that what we learn today builds more value if there's a plan to take action on it tomorrow. So head to getsystemswise.com and check out all the resources and training on the software and systems that you need to build a scalable business without breaking the bank. And if you value the show, please help others to discover it too by leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts, or by sharing a link to an episode on LinkedIn or wherever your finger does its scrolling.